Okay, I'm Isaac, and I'm back here with American the Lighthouse, and I'm going to talk about something that I think I'm solely able to comment on. Whereas I see a lot of people I agree with make the similar observations of this person. I don't think they are able to question her in the way that she should be questioned. And me, as one who has Asperger's syndrome or disorder, I don't like the word disorder. Uh, I think it's just I've said it a few times. I think it's how God decided to it's what God decided to give me to make me unique because God gives us all something that and but then it's like but everyone has autism and yes, but maybe the way that they use that gift is a little different than the next person. But I'm talking, of course, about Greta Thunberg, the Swedish climate activist, who is now of age, so she can be criticized. Apparently, I mean, I'm sorry, but no matter what your age, if you get out of the public sphere and start making comments on political and economic decisions, then you have the right to be criticized. Whether you're 12 or 52, you have the right to be criticized um, by anyone else in that sphere. And that was kind of bright. Again, it's a cigarette. It just my camera makes it look like it's one of those permanent cigarettes that you fill with oil and then the tip lights up when you inhale you take a drag and it lights up like the end of a cigarette. I don't know why they do that. It seems kind of stupid. It's like a vegan hamburger. It just exists. I just don't know why it exists. It's a weird noise in my face of rafters. Um, but yeah, so Greta Thunberg. Um, there were so many people. She's kind of disappeared now because she's no longer a kid and can be criticized. So she's not used by the powers that be as much as she was when she was a kid, which again is, in my opinion, a form of child abuse. You're subjecting this little girl who obviously has some type of issue. I have a hard time believing that she suffers from Asperger's as I do. I think it's more likely that she suffers from fetal alcohol syndrome, which is I did a video a while ago about cognitive dissonance, and people suffer from things like fetal alcohol syndrome are more prone to having that cognitive dissonance prevalent in their mental capacity. Um, so you and it was actually I have some Swedish friends I play a zombie game with online. I met playing Left 4 Dead 2, and we became really close friends really fast. For reasons I won't go into because they're kind of of a sailor nature. Let's just say that. And whereas in the rhetoric when one thinks of a sailor talk. So I won't go into that. But we became really good friends, and he informs me a lot about Sweden. And in fact, I'd asked about Greta about how the average Swedish person in his interactions with other Swedish people feel about her. And they don't have a real high opinion of her. Um, now that could just be anecdotal. It could be him and just the people he associates with. Um, but from what I gather, it's a high number of Swedish individuals dislike Greta Thunberg. Um, Maybe not as much as like someone like me, which because she uses the excuse of having Asperger's as ability to forego critique and criticism, which I think is again an indication that she doesn't suffer from Asperger's, because people with Asperger's are kind of very blunt and honest and don't shy away from criticism. If anything, they revel in criticism. They like to have their ideas challenged because they want to have the right idea. They don't want to have an idea that they think is right or they want to be right. They want the right idea. I want the right idea, the right way of thinking. And I know sometimes it may not be what I had pictured. It may be completely different than the way I imagined it should be. And in that instance, I must then adopt the truth, despite whatever I may have wanted or felt when I was researching said truth. But she hides behind her disorder, and I think she actually has a disorder. Fetal alcohol syndrome is more of a disorder, but that ties in more into the parents of the child, um, and so it's sad. And I wish her nothing but the best in life. I wish she wasn't used like a tool and terrified by all the adults around her into believing this preposterous idea of anthropomorphic climate change as a deadly and imminent disaster. Because they've been playing that same fiddle since the fucking 60s. Every 10 years, it's just a new iteration of set agenda to scare people into relinquishing control, allowing regulations and taxes. Um, and Greta Thunberg is just the latest sacrificial goat on the altar of climate change. Um, and it really is sad. But now that she's 18, when she had turned 18, when she was um, by all civilized societies, an adult. Uh, she was still spouting that same type of nonsense, but you couldn't question her. Even after she turned 18, it was still hush hush to question. You can't like, oh, you can't question Greta Thunberg. She's a climate savior. She's boycotting school until we end climate change. Well, if you are interested in climate and how it affects us, one of the worst possible things you could do is boycott an education in a place where you can then learn about said topic. But to be fed some climate hysteria by your parents and probably some sponsors, I'm sure George Soros has his fingers in there somewhere because if it's nefarious and it's global, it's got George Soros' fingers all deep inside it. Fucking filthy, disgusting, fucking Nazi cunt. If you only George Soros is, he's literally a James Bond villain. He's every James Bond villain wrapped up in one because he's real. The average James Bond villain is very over the top, very, diabolical, but at the end of the day, it's just a character played on a silver screen. But George Soros is literally like a Bond villain. He's the guy who broke the Bank of England, if you want to look that up. But yeah, no, George Soros, he's a very insidious man. And even when he's dead, and I imagine it would probably be soon because no matter how much money you have, you can only postpone death so long. And he's like he was a teenager in World War II, so he's getting really close to this end. But his family is still very big, and most of them share his ideas. And their family is intertwined with the Clintons, so that type of evil isn't going away anytime soon. Because I'm sure Hillary Clinton's daughter, Chelsea Clinton, will get into politics, and eventually the Obama daughters will get into politics. Fucking bunch of commies is what they all are. But Greta Thunberg, um, I find it preposterous that anyone would even consider taking her seriously, uh, as they do. First off, she was a kid. Second, she said she has Asperger's, and even me, when I get an idea of how something should work, I'm looking at it from a completely logical standpoint, and therefore I'm only getting half of the input I need because the other half is emotional because humans are emotional and logical. And so when I think of something, I always have to run it through an emotional filter. Like I think like it comes out logically, then I have to apply the emotional rationality for it too, so then I can see the whole picture. But she is obviously going straight from a logical perspective, but it's not logical because what she's been told is lies and misinformation. And then when she's questioned, she gets this visceral reaction because she's been told that this is logic. And if you're an Asperger's, logic is fundamental key to your existence. And so if someone questions you, what you've been told is logically concrete science, then of course you're going to react a little emotional when you're counteracted. Um, Now, if you talk logically in an actual logical way, when the opposing viewpoint is posed to you and you scrutinize it, and if it is better, the logical conclusion is to then adopt that way of thinking. Um, but if you've been conditioned to believe that only what you've heard is logical and everything else is hogwash, then and what the hogwash that they've been told they tell you is hogwash is actually the truth, then of course when you're presented with the actual truth, you see it as lies and misinformation. Um, and if it is true, um, the only way you can maintain that is through like a mental defect like cognitive dissonance. which, as I stated in an earlier video, you can either have it as a result of a birth anomaly, whatever you want to call it, or you can develop it in the education system when you're, not taught critical thinking. And so this Greta Thunberg thing, and she's kind of dared off it a bit, and I feel bad. Well, I don't feel bad. I wished I thought of this doing this sooner, or I started my channel sooner, so I could have done a more relevant video on her, because I have Asperger's, um, and I can understand where she's coming from, but she has been lied to by all the adults around her. And in my opinion, that's child abuse. When you mislead or misinform or lie to a child and tell them that what you're telling them is the truth, that's hurting them. That's not just hurting physically, that's hurting their brain. And in my opinion, that's probably a lot more hurting someone's brain is a lot more than like giving them a belt across the butt or a switch across the butt when they spill something or break something. Hurting their brain is far more long lasting and devastating because then that person with that damaged thought process goes out in the world, it'll never end well. Either you'll see policies like we have here in Oregon through our government because those idiots got in the power, or you see the people rioting and burning and looting that are just now getting out of the main phase of indoctrination of high school, and it used to not be like grade school, but it's even starting to get into grade school now. This destroying of our children's minds is very nefarious and insidious and on purpose. Um, but if you are liberal and you suffer from cognitive dissonance, then this video is probably not going to reach you, even though I try to be very polite and calmly keeled in presenting it to you. Except for when I insult someone like fucking George Soros, who is a fucking Nazi. Straight up fucking. He's a relic of the Third Reich. The last remaining relic of the Third Reich. And guess whose family he's tied to? Hillary Clinton. So, yeah, that's it. So yeah, comment in the video below if you knew who George Soros was, or if you don't, or what your stance on Greta Thunberg is. Or if you have Asperger's like me, what's your take on her, and how the media and her family have abused her, I believe, fully. And so that's it. Thank you. Goodbye.